In professional sports, nearly all coaches, analysts, and front office executives concur on an unwritten rule. Without ever having to say it aloud, in a crucial road game, you don't give the keys to a novice. You don't gaze at someone in their first professional season in front of an antagonistic audience eager to see them fail, with a season's worth of public. Say, you're making the calls tonight, with criticism already resting on their shoulders. Professional sports don't operate like that. It takes years for veteran players to gain that kind of trust. Entire professions are centered around the gradual development of credibility that ultimately grants a player the privilege of being the final voice. When everything is at stake, the squad pays attention. Rookies are shielded from such burden by coaches, not because they don't think in them, but because the mental infrastructure needed to oversee a live playoff game at full speed while concurrently. The league typically requires you to read personnel, call plays, and take in every adjustment the opposition makes. It takes years to develop acceptance. Nevertheless, on hostile territory, with a playoff series at stake, against the coaching staff of Indiana, the league's most physically active squad, glanced at Caitlin Clark and stated precisely that what transpired next revealed something about Clark and ended the Rookie of the Year controversy that ultimately had to be acknowledged by 66 out of 67 voters. The highlight reels, something the turnover counts, and her statistics were consistently absent from every sports segment that processed them. The true narrative of this season was never included in the box score. When judgments were being taken, the margin for error was at its lowest and the pressure was at its strongest. Vanished entirely. If you've been watching this show for the entire season, you've probably already guessed the plot. Considerably greater than what the figures indicated. And in case you haven't been listening, what you're about to hear is going to reinterpret what you believe to be true about Clark's actions this year. Let's go back to a time when none of this made sense. Prior to the award vote, the playoff series, and the discussion, there was a clear respond. Let's return to what Caitlin Clark encountered upon joining the WNBA, as without comprehension. The rest of this story doesn't go as planned because of the burden she carried from the beginning. Arenas that had run at half capacity. 4 years, capacity was selling out weeks ahead of schedule. Not as a result of anything Clark had done in his career. She had yet to play a single minute in the WNBA. The sheer force of gravity was causing the sellouts. Of anticipation that she brought straight from college. Expectations were so high that the infrastructure began to change. Of the league prior to her ever playing on a professional court. Deals for television were being renegotiated. For the first time in years, broadcast partners were paying attention. Every structure she entered. It felt like a final setting during that rookie season. Charged, boisterous, and crowded with people who had made their decisions beforehand that this was an occasion worth attending. There are two sides to that type of situation. On the one hand, it's confirmation that others support your efforts. However, it also means that every error is seen by as many people as possible. Every poor pass, every misunderstanding, and every instance in which the adjustment to professional pace hasn't entirely clicked yet. Everything is examined in front of a group of people who have already made a decision. You are meant to be unique. There isn't a calm space to work things out. Low-stakes Tuesdays don't exist. Play a night game in a partially empty building to work out your kinks without fear of repercussions. Clark didn't understand that. She was scrutinized from her very first professional game, something that most veterans never go through at any stage in their professional lives. Additionally, that shift did not go smoothly in the first few weeks. The turnovers began to mount nearly instantly, and the final regular season number was the kind of figure that sports irresistible to the media. Out of all the players in the league, Clark had 42 more turnovers. Not 10, not 5, not 42. When compared to other people's numbers, the disparity was so large and visually startling that it practically automatically took over as the main plot. Sports programs instantly turned it into a weapon. Each poor pass was given its own clip, and each error was isolated, slowed down, and replayed with a caption that basically questioned whether marketing teams had created the excitement over Clark instead of being gained on a basketball court. The criticism was loud, persistent, and originated from individuals with genuine platforms. Additionally, it was difficult to disagree with the obvious conclusion if you only considered that one figure. More turnovers by an embarrassing margin than any other player in the league. However, this is what each and every one Of those parts that were overlooked, and it's the whole point, not just a small detail, there were no turnovers. Since Clark was pretending to be afraid, they weren't the result of her being careless, distracted, or overwhelmed by the situation. They occurred as a result of her playing faster than her teammates. Adjusting to. There were no conceptual errors in the passes being thrown. They received half of the passes, thrown to areas that Clark had previously noted as open before the play had reached its full potential. The defense was determined to shut them down. Her teammates were prepared for it at times. The ball landed precisely where Indiana scored, and it had to be. They weren't always there yet. The timing was a little wrong. And the outcome was a turnover that was included on a highlight reel with a caption that questioned her judgment. Would anyone take the time to note that this is precisely what you witness in the early phases of any outstanding point guard's profession on the court? The player with the highest basketball IQ is often always working a little bit ahead of the persons in their immediate vicinity. Turnovers are caused by this disparity in processing speed. Additionally, it produces the type of offense things defenses are actually unable to prepare for because the choice is made ahead of the traditional read of the play would imply that it's time to create one. Magic Johnson made mistakes. Steve Nash made mistakes. Every guard who has ever played at a speed that continuously defied everyone's presumptions. They have gone through something similar to what Clark went through in the beginning of her rookie season. Any elite point guard's first professional season can be isolated, and their turnover rate may be calculated. As the main framework for assessing their performance, you can create a strong argument opposing every one of them. In no way do turnovers reveal a player's character. They inform you how far ahead the player is reading and what kinds of risks they are willing to take. The game, as well as their level of confidence in their own ideas of what's feasible. Sportsman who never switches the ball over is frequently a player who never tries the pass that opens up a defense. Clark was trying to make those passes continuously, even in the absence of the timing. It's not a warning sign. That's the whole reason she was worth keeping an eye on. Additionally, the regular season commentary cycle was not going to be the true measure of what she was capable of. It was occurring in 4 games against Chicago. This story wouldn't be possible without Angel Reese, so let's take a moment to focus on her before moving on to what Clark did in that playoff series. Are you aware that the history is being rewritten in a way that isn't consistent with the of-the-year discussion, which was already decided before those 4 games even tipped off? Reese is the reason the argument was genuine and boisterous. Reese was the most physically dominant rookie in 2024. The league, and there wasn't a close second. Analysts were freely discussing her presence on the glass. The figures she was posting didn't appear to be rookie stats, therefore it was difficult to contextualize. At one point in the season, he recorded 12 straight double-doubles, a run that caught the attention of the entire basketball world. A rebounding record that led league analysts to publicly wonder if the Rookie of the Year, if the discussion even needed to go on at that point, or if Reese had resolved the issue by sheer, unquestionable production. She wasn't waiting for chances to present themselves. She was producing them, win after game, by combining superior positioning, superior athleticism, and a level of competition that was both impossible to ignore and impossible to falsify. In 2024, the Chicago Sky developed their whole corporate identity about what Camila Cardoso, the center, and Reese could accomplish together in the paint. They had the greatest rebounding squad in the league, and they had dedicated the entire season to creating a playing style that was especially to take advantage of that benefit. They used the same strategy for each game, and it worked. Become more active, win the war of attrition, dominate the boards, and make every possession miserable for the opposition, and let the paint to take over the surrounding area. That tactic had been effective, especially against Indiana. Chicago was always there to sabotage Indiana's attempts to build rhythm. Each time Indiana constructed a cushion. Before Indiana could breathe, Reese was bringing Chicago back into the match, by the season's halfway point. Not unwillingly, a number of experts who had begun the year in Clark's corner had publicly switched to Reese's. Decisively, it was difficult to dispute the figures Reese was generating. The argument had turned into one of the authentic WNBA season narratives, with respectable arguments made for each player by those who understood what they were discussing. Anyone saying otherwise or maintaining that the result was clear prior to the playoffs series is lying about the true nature of that season's first half. Reese made the argument genuine. The only truthful account of what happened. The Indiana-Chicago first-round series opening game set the tone. That made those hoping for a clean Indiana victory uneasy right away. In some areas, Clark was sharp. Sharp passing, precise long-range shooting, and the kind of playmaking that occasionally reminded you of exactly why everyone had such high expectations of her. However, turnovers left the door open each time Indiana seemed to be withdrawing. At times when the margins ought to have been wider, the game was a one-point contest. Indiana made it through. However, that line makes extensive use of the word survived. Knowing they had not found a solution, they departed Chicago. Chicago's toughness had become apparent in every possession. Each time Clark attempted to push the game's tempo, a black jersey defender was there to make it challenging, slow it down, and give Indiana every inch of the area they were attempting to hide. Game 1 was won by Indiana, although the triumph was accompanied by an asterisk that said, "This is by no means the end of the series." There was a distinct and significant difference in Game 2. The highlight wasn't forced by Clark. Play no more. She wasn't searching for the shot that would confirm or the pass that would wind up on a highlight reel. The story. She was making the appropriate play in response to what the defense was presenting. Basic, uncomplicated basketball that wins games but doesn't attract individual attention. Games at a steady pace. The outcomes were apparent and instantaneous. Colleagues who weren't well known for big offensive nights appeared to be different players all of a sudden. Chicago's physical system was causing the ball to move with a rhythm. Had no quick